This is 40 years of WWE. From Hulk Hogan to Netflix deals, a billion-dollar empire built on body slams, betrayal, and surprisingly good theme songs. Steroids, stunners, stock market drama, WWE never stopped evolving, and neither did the chaos. Before the Pyro, before the Titantron, before Logan Paul started doing Canadian destroyers, there was Hulk Hogan. It's the 1980s. Vince McMahon Jr. just bought the World Wrestling Federation from his dad and decided regional wrestling wasn't enough. He wanted to go national. His secret weapon? A walking action figure with a mustache. Hulk Hogan. Fresh off a cameo in Rocky III, Hogan became the face of WWF. With his 24-inch pythons, his cartoon morality, say your prayers and eat your vitamins, and the charisma of a caffeinated gym coach, he was everywhere. But the real flex came in 1987. WrestleMania 3, Pontiac Silverdome. Hogan body slams Andre the Giant in front of 90,000 fans and somehow, like 5 million more on VHS. That wasn't just a wrestling match, it was mythology. McMahon went full Super Bowl mode, launched WrestleMania, brought in Mr. T, Cyndi Lauper, MTV. The rock and wrestling era was born. Then came the Big Four, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and WrestleMania. Suddenly, wrestling wasn't just on TV, it was pop culture. Hogan got a cartoon, Randy Savage sold Slim Jims in Ultimate Warrior, he ran on neon paint, cosmic ramblings, and what looked suspiciously like powdered insanity. And while Hogan was body slamming giants, kids were moonwalking like Michael Jackson. MTV actually played music videos, and E.T. was still trying to phone home. The old school promoters never saw it coming. WWF wasn't just beating the territories, it was erasing them. The golden era had arrived, loud, jacked, and utterly unforgettable. The steroids were out, the mullets were in. After nearly imploding under the weight of legal scandals, Hulk Hogan's ego, and enough baby oil to slick an entire football field, WWF needed a reset. And they weren't just battling bad ratings, they were battling the feds. By the early 90s, WWF was on life support, and not because of WCW. It was Vince, it was federal court, and it was the steroids. For years, the WWF had been pumping out muscle-bound icons like they were built in a lab. Turns out, they kinda were. In 1991, a Pennsylvania doctor named George Zahorian, who'd been supplying WWF talent with steroids, was convicted. That opened the floodgates. In 1993, Vince McMahon was indicted by the U.S. government for distributing anabolic steroids to his wrestlers. The man behind Hulkamania was now facing prison. The trial was a media circus. Hulk Hogan testified for the prosecution. Sponsors ran, stock dipped, and suddenly, sports entertainment looked a lot like a crime scene in spandex. Vince was eventually acquitted in 1994, but it left a crater in the company's credibility and his roster. Out went the jacked-up bodybuilders. In came smaller guys with better cardio. The message was clear. No more cartoon giants. WWF needed athletes, not action figures. The solution? Smaller guys with better cardio. Out went the muscle gods. In came Bret the Hitman Hart. Stoic, pink, and clinically precise. And Shawn Michaels, a human gift before the internet, arrived with charisma, earrings, and just enough backstage drama to keep things spicy. These two didn't just wrestle, they performed. Ladder matches, Iron Man matches, ego-driven masterpieces. Their rivalry was the era. Meanwhile, Monday Night Raw debuted in '93, broadcast from weird, smoky venues that looked like vampire nightclubs. It was Raw in every sense of the word. And then the war began. WCW, now backed by billionaire Ted Turner, launched Monday Nitro and started snatching away WWF stars like they were trading cards. Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, even Mean Gene. Gone. The Monday Night Wars kicked off and WWF was getting smoked, but not without a fight. Razor Ramon oozed machismo. Kevin Nash brought the size, and The Undertaker, he just kept being terrifying. The edge got sharper, the storytelling darker, and then, in 1997, it boiled over. Survivor Series, Montreal. Bret Hart was the reigning WWF champion. He was set to leave for WCW, but he didn't want to drop the title to Shawn Michaels in his home country. Vince McMahon nodded, agreed, and then rang the damn bell anyway. Shawn looked shocked, Bret was furious, the ref ran, and Vince got punched in the face backstage. This wasn't a storyline, it was a double-cross, broadcast live. It shattered the illusion, and in doing so, it planted the seed for something much bigger. And while Bret was getting screwed in Canada, Friends ruled Thursday nights, Tamagotchis were dying in kids' pockets, and everyone was pretending to like Crystal Pepsi. WWF was bleeding, but it had finally found something real. Conflict. The Attitude Era was kicking the door down. This wasn't just an era, it was a full-blown identity crisis in leather pants. After getting embarrassed by WCW, betrayed by Brett, and nearly obliterated by lawsuits, Vince McMahon decided to do what any sane billionaire would do: burn everything down. On December 15th, 1997, Vince looked straight into the camera on Monday Night Raw and told the audience, "We think you're tired of having your intelligence insulted." Translation: say goodbye to cartoon heroes, say hello to beer, blood, middle fingers, and mayhem. Enter Stone Cold Steve Austin. A Texas redneck with bad knees and worse manners, Austin chugged beers, flipped off his boss, and made Rebellion look cooler than championship gold. His feud with Vince McMahon, now rebranded as the evil billionaire overlord, was pure lightning. Every punch, every stunner, every beer-soaked beatdown drew millions. And then there was The Rock. Once a smiling flop in tassels, he evolved into the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. His catchphrases hit harder than most finishers. Know your role. Lay the smackdown. It doesn't matter what your name is. America didn't just watch The Rock. They quoted him in hallways. And in between them, you had Mankind, the man who got thrown off and through a Hell in a Cell and just kept going. You had DX, crotch chops, schoolboy humor, and TV segments that walked the legal line weekly. You had The Undertaker, fully embracing his satanic goth phase, forming the Ministry of Darkness and crucifying people on live television like it was Tuesday. Tag team wrestling exploded. The Hardys, the Dudleys, Edge, and Christian. TLC matches turned ladders into lethal weapons, and behind the scenes, writer Vince Russo was throwing everything at the wall. Shuck turns, bra and panties matches, Mae Young giving birth to a hand. But here's the secret ingredient no one talks about enough: ECW. While WWF was going mainstream, Paul Heyman's ECW was the rebellious little brother lighting fires underground. It had blood, barbed wire, and zero corporate polish. It was real, raw, and revolutionary. The first promotion where wrestlers cut pipe bomb promos before that was a thing. Without ECW, there's no hardcore division, no edgy storytelling, no audience ready to cheer for an anti-hero like Austin. Vince didn't just take notes, he took talent. Steve Austin, Mick Foley, the Dudleys, Jericho, RVD. ECW gave them edge. WWF gave them a platform. So while Raw was pulling 8 million viewers, ECW was pulling credibility. It gave the Attitude Era its backbone and its barbed wire. Meanwhile, over at WCW, the wheels were coming off. The NWO had gone from revolutionary to repetitive. Creative was run by committee. Titles changed hands weekly. And then came January 4th, 1999. The night WCW spoiled Raw's pre-taped result and told fans that Mankind was about to win the WWF title. Tony Schiavone smirked. That'll put some butts in seats. 600,000 people immediately changed the channel to tune into Raw. Ouch. What was intended to spoil Raw that night ended up making it an even bigger hit. That wasn't just a ratings loss, it was a cultural backhand. WCW never recovered. And by 2001, it was dead. Vince bought his biggest rival and rolled the company logo into a video package. The Monday Night Wars were over, and there was only one winner. And while all this madness was happening, South Park was rewriting TV rules, Napster was about to kill the music industry, and 8 million people were tuning into Raw every Monday night. It all climaxed at WrestleMania 17 in 2001, Austin vs. Rock, Houston Astrodome. And in a twist no one saw coming, Austin shook hands with Vince. A beer-soaked alliance with the devil. That same year, Vince bought WCW. The war was over. The Attitude Era had saved WWF, buried its biggest rival, and changed wrestling forever. Loud, profitable, unhinged, and utterly unrepeatable. The war was over. Vince had won. And with ECW and WCW buried, he did what any victor would do: fumble the aftermath spectacularly. In mid-2001, WWE launched The Invasion. A dream scenario on paper, WCW and ECW teaming up to destroy the company from the inside. But instead of Goldberg, Sting, the NWO, and Ric Flair, we got Chuck Palumbo and Shawn Stasiak. The big names were still under Time Warner contracts, so Vince gave us The Alliance, a weird Frankenstein of WCW mid-carders and Paul Heyman's ECW misfits led by Stephanie McMahon? What should have been wrestling's Avengers Endgame became a low-budget crossover with the wrong cast. Survivor Series 2001 ended the angle. Team WWF won, the Alliance died, and WWE was left staring into the void with no real enemies left to fight. So in June 2002, Vince walked to the ring and demanded something new. One phrase: Ruthless Aggression. And a rookie named John Cena slapped Kurt Angle across the face like he was trying to wake the company up. But before Cena became the guy, another monster stepped in. Brock Lesnar, a walking muscle spasm with a neck thicker than most people's waists. Brock obliterated everyone. Within 6 months, he became the youngest WWE champion ever by steamrolling The Rock at SummerSlam. Raw and SmackDown officially split brands. SmackDown became the wrestling workhorse, thanks to the SmackDown 6, Eddie, Benoit, Angle, Edge, Chavo, and Rey. Raw became the Ego Trip, starring Triple H, Ric Flair, and their shiny new faction, Evolution. Evolution gave us Randy Orton, the Legend Killer, and Batista, the Silent Tank. Meanwhile, Cena transformed from rap battle mid-carder to saluting Marine superhero. JBL showed up in a limo with Wall Street energy, and Eddie Guerrero became the people's champion by lying, cheating, and stealing our hearts. Then came WrestleMania 21, the true passing of the torch. Batista beat Triple H. Cena beat JBL. A new era had officially arrived. The in-ring production was more physical, more technical, and sometimes downright vicious. Blood was still around, promos were still real, but the edges? Starting to soften. Meanwhile, The Sopranos was redefining TV, MySpace was king of social media, and the iPod Mini was the height of human innovation. WWE even brought back ECW in 2006 as a third brand, and then immediately killed its soul by putting Vince McMahon in a do-rag as ECW champion. But overall, the product was strong, the matches were tight, and the stars felt earned. This was WWE's gritty reboot, less attitude, more athleticism. And for a while, it worked. Until sponsors started getting nervous, and WWE decided it was time to go full Disney Channel. The blood dried up, the language got cleaner, and Vince McMahon looked around and said, "What if we stopped terrifying sponsors?" Just like that, WWE went PG. Gone were the chair shots to the head and bikini contests. In came anti-bullying PSAs, celebrity guest hosts, and John Cena merch in every Target in America. Cena wasn't just a wrestler anymore, he was a walking brand extension. Hustle, loyalty, respect, never give up. He sold millions of shirts, granted hundreds of Make-A-Wish requests, and beat everyone. Like, everyone. Edge? Buried. Umaga? Flattened. The Nexus? Never stood a chance. Fans started calling it the Super Cena era, because even Kryptonite couldn't book this guy to lose. Meanwhile, Triple H married into the McMahon family, became part-time, and slowly began taking over backstage. And the matches? Still solid. Shawn Michaels came out of retirement and gave us masterpieces with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25 and 26. Rey Mysterio carried underdog magic, and Randy Orton became a snake. But there was a problem. It all started to feel safe. That edge from the Attitude Era, gone. The chaos from Ruthless Aggression, fading. And then came a man with a microphone, CM Punk. June 27th, 2011, Las Vegas. Punk sat at the top of the ramp and cut the promo that ripped the fourth wall wide open. He called out Cena. He called out The Rock. He called out Vince. He called out the entire machine. And the world listened. The pipe bomb didn't just spark interest, it reignited a generation of lapsed fans. A few weeks later, Punk beat Cena at Money in the Bank in front of a white-hot Chicago crowd, kissed Vince goodbye, and walked out of WWE with the title. It was magic until WWE rushed him back in 8 days and made Triple H the focus again. Still, the moment mattered, and so did Punk. The PG era gave us flashes of brilliance. Daniel Bryan's slow burn rise, The Shield's chaotic debut, The Rock vs. Cena, once in a lifetime. Then twice, because money. But for the most part, WWE had become a slick corporate machine. Meanwhile, Breaking Bad was making meth on primetime, Facebook was still fun, and Gangnam Style somehow broke the internet. WWE wasn't cool anymore, but it was profitable, and the next revolution was coming from the bottom, not the top. WWE had the PG rating, it had the sponsors, it had the carefully crafted storylines, but it didn't have control anymore, because the crowd had finally snapped. The catalyst? CM Punk walked out of WWE in 2014, mid-contract, mid-storyline, mid-everything. No farewell match, no goodbye promo, just gone. Fans didn't just notice, they revolted. Every segment got hijacked, every chosen one was booed, and at the center of that storm stood one man, Daniel Bryan. 5'8", vegan, beard like a wizard. He didn't look like a star, but the crowd turned him into a movement. The Yes Movement. WWE tried to ignore it. They gave us Batista. They gave us Orton. The fans gave them hell. So WWE did the only thing it could. It gave in. WrestleMania 30, Daniel Bryan beats Triple H in the opener, then pins Orton and Batista in the main event. Undersized, underdog, undeniable. And for one night, WWE felt real again. But then came the gut punch. The streak ended. Brock Lesnar defeated The Undertaker, clean, ending the most iconic winning streak in wrestling history, 21-1. The crowd went silent, shocked, disoriented. The meme faces in the front row said everything. Brock went full boss mode after that, suplexing Cena into dust at SummerSlam and holding the title hostage for months. But it set the tone. Unpredictability was back. The Shield broke up, Seth Rollins turned heel and became the architect of WWE's future. He cashed in at WrestleMania 31 in the heist of the century, mid-match during Brock vs. Roman. It was a twist worthy of the Attitude Era. Meanwhile, NXT was quietly becoming the best wrestling product in the company. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, Sasha Banks, Bayley. These weren't sports entertainers, they were wrestlers. And under Triple H's guidance, NXT became a factory for dream matches and pure storytelling. While all this was happening, Netflix was starting to kill cable, Marvel ruled the box office, and the dress divided the internet. WWE had finally embraced its fans' voices, but it was still trying to force its favorites. The crowd loved Daniel Bryan. WWE pushed Roman Reigns. The crowd loved Sasha and Bayley. WWE booked Nikki Bella versus Ava Marie. The disconnect was real. The reality era was short, but crucial. It blurred the lines between character and performer. It gave us Daniel Bryan's triumph and his forced retirement, Punk's legacy and his absence. The internet wasn't just reacting to WWE anymore, it was shaping it. The company had heard the crowd, but it still hadn't learned how to follow them. By 2016, WWE had seen the future, and for once, it looked good. Daniel Bryan had retired, CM Punk was long gone, but the indie scene they inspired just invaded the main roster. AJ Styles, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Shinsuke Nakamura, Samoa Joe, all guys who WWE would have laughed at 10 years earlier, were now headlining. NXT had gone from developmental to destination. Triple H built a wrestling brand that actually cared about wrestling, and fans noticed. Black and gold takeovers regularly outshined the main roster pay-per-views, but the main product still had its issues. Roman Reigns was still being pushed as the guy, and the crowd still wasn't buying it. Every time he won, the boos rained down. WWE had created a Superman, but forgot to give him a soul. Meanwhile, something historic was brewing. The women's evolution. No more divas, no more butterfly belts. Women were main eventing. Sasha Banks and Charlotte tore it down in Hell in a Cell. Becky Lynch transformed into the Man after turning heel and accidentally becoming a megastar. And at WrestleMania 35, it finally happened. Becky, Charlotte, Ronda Rousey. The first ever women's WrestleMania main event. It wasn't just symbolic, it was earned. And over on the men's side, AJ Styles brought prestige back to the WWE title. His matches with Cena and Ambrose were instant classics. Braun Strowman was flipping ambulances. The Miz had a career renaissance. The Cruiserweights, well, they tried. And then there were the head scratchers. Jinder Mahal as WWE Champion, Brock Lesnar's Universal title hostage run, Goldberg's squash matches in the year of our Lord 2017. It was progress, with asterisks. And then 2020 hit. Live crowds were gone, the world shut down, and WWE was about to enter its most surreal chapter yet. In the real world, TikTok exploded, Game of Thrones collapsed, and Parasite won Best Picture. In WWE, the new era had opened the door, but the Thunderdome was waiting on the other side. Then the world stopped. March 2020, the pandemic hit, and WWE, a company built on crowd noise and sweaty chaos, had to figure out how to wrestle in silence. They moved to the Performer Center. No fans, no pyro, just echoey promos and slams that sounded like car crashes. It was weird. It was quiet. It was unreal. WrestleMania 36 happened in a training facility. Drew McIntyre beat Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship in front of 0 people. That was supposed to be his crowning moment. Instead, it felt like a rehearsal. So WWE adapted. In August 2020, they launched the Thunderdome, a giant LED screen arena filled with digital fans, canned chants, and just enough noise to fake normal. It was part sci-fi, part fever dream. But inside that bizarre bubble, something clicked. Roman Reigns returned, not as a smiling babyface, not as the guy, but as the tribal chief. Cold, dangerous, whisper-quiet menace. With Paul Heyman by his side, Roman dominated the pandemic era. No catchphrases, no pandering, just family drama, guillotine chokes, and an aura so heavy you could feel it through the screen. And he wasn't alone. Sasha Banks and Bayley ran the women's division. The Hurt Business quietly became the best thing on Raw. And Asuka carried the company through chaos with green mist and unmatched work rate. But WWE also got experimental. The Firefly Funhouse match, John Cena versus Bray Wyatt in a surreal fourth-wall-breaking fever dream. The Boneyard match, AJ Styles versus The Undertaker in a cinematic send-off for a legend. Wrestling had to become film, and honestly, for a brief moment, it worked. Meanwhile, the world was baking banana bread, watching Tiger King and pretending to like Zoom quizzes. WWE had no crowd, no energy, no safety net, but somehow, the show never stopped. In July 2021, fans finally returned, starting with Money in the Bank. And with the crowd came the spark, the noise, the goosebumps. The Thunderdome was done, but it proved something. Even in silence, wrestling still speaks. For decades, Vince McMahon was WWE. He booked the matches, wrote the promos, approved the camera cuts, and occasionally wrestled in jeans. But in July 2022, it all changed. Vince McMahon stepped down amid controversy after 40 years in control, and into the spotlight stepped the one man fans trusted with their broken hearts. Triple H. The cerebral assassin, the NXT architect, the guy who made black and gold cool. And now he had the keys to the kingdom. Immediately things started changing. Match times increased, micromanaging decreased, previously released talent returned, promos felt natural, and feuds made sense. Raw and SmackDown felt watchable again. Johnny Gargano, Braun Strowman, Karrion Kross, Dakota Kai, Bray Wyatt, one by one Triple H brought them all back. The shows weren't just built around moments, they were built around stories. The Bloodline saga reached new heights, turning Sami Zayn into a fan-favorite court jester and eventually tearing the family apart, one heartbreak at a time. Mid-card titles mattered, NXT call-ups were protected, even the commentary got better, and all the while, Roman Reigns remained the final boss. Meanwhile, Elon bought Twitter, AI started writing everyone's essays, and TikTok was running the culture. In WWE, creative was finally being led by someone who actually respected wrestling. Not as a toy commercial, not as a stock price, but as an art form. It wasn't perfect, nothing in WWE ever is, but for the first time in years, the product felt alive. And in 2023, WWE made it official. They were being sold to Endeavor, the parent company of UFC. WWE and UFC merged into one new entity, TKO Group Holdings. Vince still loomed in the background, but creatively, this was Triple H's era. One of long-term booking, one of real emotional payoffs, one that was quietly building to something epic. A story that started in the indies and was about to finish on the biggest stage of all. WWE has had many eras. Some were loud, some were edgy, some were way too PG. But this feels like a rebirth. In April 2024, Cody Rhodes finally did it. WrestleMania 40, Philadelphia. In front of a deafening crowd, he beat Roman Reigns, ending the most dominant title reign in modern history. 3 years, one family, one bloodline. Finished the story. It wasn't just a title change, it was closure. A payoff to years of build, something WWE hadn't pulled off this cleanly in decades. And it wasn't the only change. Raw moved to Netflix, Forbidden Doors opened with TNA, NOAH, and indie crossovers once thought impossible. New stars rose. Ilja Dragunov, Trick Williams, Tiffany Stratton. Old stars returned, re-signed, repackaged, and finally used right. Then came a moment no one expected, but somehow made perfect sense. Worlds collide. A special crossover event streamed live on YouTube where WWE talent crashed with wrestlers from TNA, NOAH, and beyond, all under one roof. No paywall, no network, just free global wrestling in real time. It wasn't just a content drop, it was a statement. WWE no longer saw collaboration as weakness. This was no longer the company that ignored the industry around it, this was the center of it. Under Triple A's leadership, WWE found a sweet spot, sports entertainment with actual wrestling stakes. Matches got longer, storylines paid off, and promos stopped sounding like HR-approved TED Talks. Even production changed, cleaner camera work, fewer rapid cuts, a more cinematic tone. WWE wasn't chasing the past anymore, it was building something new. For the first time in over 20 years, fans weren't just watching, they were invested. Not because they were promised the next Austin or Rock, but because they were being given something more rare, respect. This was the Renaissance. A new era built on the bones of everything that came before, but no longer chained to it. And the next chapter is being written right now.